Machinery manufacturing is a very unique space from the ERP lenses. So, which are the top 10 machinery manufacturing ERP systems in 2024? That's what we are going to discuss in this video. So, let's dive in. Hello everyone, my name is Sam Gupta. I am principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent ERP digital transformation consulting firm. We help our clients with digital transformation strategy, ERP selection, change management, as well as implementation. On that note, let's go back to today's topic, which is going to be top 10 machinery manufacturing ERP systems in 2024. Before we dive into the topic, let's define what is machinery manufacturing. In general, these are going to be large machines that companies are going to use, whether you look at any of the paper cutting machinery or food equipment or Industry 4.0 machinery. Any machinery that is going to be slightly larger in size, they are generally going to be your capital equipment from the financial perspective. Generally, the way the business model is designed for these businesses, you are going to have the machine division, generally that is going to be project manufacturing. Then you are going to have the parts division, which is going to be primarily make to order. Then you are going to have service division, which has very unique and different workflows. And finally, you might have nuances such as your rental, etc., depending upon the business model. As part of how we define machinery manufacturing as far as the scope of this list goes, all of the equipment manufacturers are going to be part of this. Any companies that are going to be part of that machinery business model are going to be part of this. The criteria that we use to compile this list is product share, the acquisition strategy focused on machinery category, then product roadmap, community ecosystem, win rate, technology strategy, etc. So these are some of the variables that we use to compile this list. So now let's look at the list. Number one on our list is Odoo. And Odoo is an ideal fit for SMB machinery manufacturers that might be outgrowing QuickBooks. And generally, the way Odoo data model is designed, it's not as embedded, it's not as tight. So that is going to help with the implementation perspective. If you have been on very siloed process model, very siloed data model, generally that is going to be the case if you are on QuickBooks. So here you are going to get some integration from the data perspective as well as from the process perspective. It might not be as much as some of the larger ERP systems, such as if you look at Acumatica or Info CSI. With those, your integration is going to be tighter, but Odoo is going to help you from the implementation perspective. The implementation will be cheaper, and the reason why the implementation is cheaper is because it does not require integrating all of those data sets. It might not require as many layers, the relational modeling that you need to do with the other systems. The other strengths that we have with Odoo is it is well adopted, especially among Industry 4.0 companies, as well as the other machinery companies. They use this. They might not be using it for procurement planning or slightly more mature scenarios where they might require very sophisticated MRP planning. But generally, if you are going to be in very small machinery space, they generally buy components per project. So they are probably not going to require all of those sophisticated capabilities. So for those companies, Odoo could be a great fit. The other strength that we have is it is a lot of different business models. So sometimes we see scenarios where you have the machinery manufacturer, but their parts division is going to be very e-commerce centric. So if you have that, and if you are very busy in your e-commerce department as well, where you require the distribution planning or the retail planning, then some of the solutions on this list might not be the best fit. The limitations that you are going to run into with Odoo is, number one, it is highly customizable. So that could be a pro as well as a con. And if you don't have a very sophisticated business consulting firm with deep expertise in designing workflows, we see scenarios where consulting companies have over customized it. And because of that, we see a lot more failures in general. Odoo is also going to be limited overall in terms of the sophisticated scenarios from the ERP layer perspective. They are not going to be as rich as some of the other systems that we have on the list. But Odoo could be a great starting system for machinery manufacturers. That's why it ranks at number 10 on our list. Now, number 9 on our list is Rootstock. And Rootstock is ideal for companies on ETO machinery that might be on Salesforce. The strengths that we have for Rootstock is, number one, it has richer WBS-centric functionality, which is going to be your project manufacturing. A lot of other ERP systems, they are going to claim that they have project manufacturing functionality, but the whole operational aspect of project is not as rich. They might have integration with your Microsoft project, etc. But again, tracking those operational tasks, generally each of the tasks need to be tightly correlated with your financial processes. And sometimes not each process needs to be financial. And that's where your operational tasks are going to be handy as well. So some systems do really good job of capturing those operational aspects of the project management. It does not feel as if they are using very tightly controlled financial system. So in those cases, the Rootstock is going to be a great fit. It is also very closely aligned with other Salesforce products. So if you care for that Salesforce experience, in general, the majority of the machinery manufacturers are going to be working on very expensive deals. These are going to be millions and millions of dollars of projects. And obviously, because of that, these are going to be very long extending deals. And for that reason, these companies are going to be highly content driven, meaning their majority of the sales and marketing processes, they are going to be on CRM. So they have to utilize some sort of CRM as part of their workflow. It's not going to be as simple as, let's say, if you look at some of the other manufacturing modes, for example, MTO, where you might start simply with the order. You don't necessarily invest as much in the pre-sales process, the content process, the marketing process. So for that reason, these companies are going to be hosting a lot more processes in CRM, such as your Salesforce in general. So if you care for that experience, then Rootstock is going to be a great fit. The final strength that we have with Rootstock is the technology is very cloud native. So if you care for that mobile experience, especially in your service department, for those people, the mobile experience is going to be extremely handy. So if you have field services processes, they need to process your orders from the phone. They need to order the inventory from the phone. They need to sometimes do the signature process, etc. If you care for all of that experience, then Rootstock is going to be a great fit. Some of the limitations to keep in mind with Rootstock is the data model that we have, the underlying data model with your Salesforce. It's not as relational as you are going to find with the other ERP system. That's how most CRMs are designed. So you are not going to get the same experience. You might run into the customizability issues if you have to replicate the relational structure. So that is going to be a limitation. It's not as diverse overall from the capabilities perspective. So if you have a lot of different business models that you are trying to accommodate as part of your Rootstock installation, then you might run into challenges there. And it's not as well adopted overall. The number of logos that they have, they are fairly limited. Among those, the machinery manufacturing logos are going to be highly limited as well. But having said that, Rootstock is still a very strong fit for machinery manufacturers, and that's why it ranks at number 9 on our list. Number 8 on our list is Oracle Cloud ERP. And unlike Odoo and Rootstock, which are predominantly designed for companies that might be outgrowing QuickBooks, Oracle ERP is a very large system. Generally, this system is going to be handy when you are outgrowing some of the smaller or mid-sized ERP systems. For example, let's say if you are outgrowing your Samsai or Epicor Kinetic, that's when you are going to be on these systems. The primary advantage that we have with Oracle Cloud ERP is when you are trying to consolidate all of your global entities. You are present and operating in a lot of different countries, and you care for that end-to-end traceability of all of those countries from the financial perspective, but also from the operational perspective. That's when these systems are going to be handy. They are also great fit when you are going to be either publicly traded or you are going to be audited. So then the amount of data traceability that you are going to require in those scenarios is going to be at a different level, and that's where your Oracle Cloud ERP is a better fit. Generally, these are going to be companies which are going to be your Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 workloads. That's where your Oracle Cloud ERP is a better fit in general. Now, the other strengths that we are looking at from the Oracle Cloud ERP perspective, the diversity of the solution. So when you are trying to accommodate many different business models, along with your machinery. For example, let's say if you have machinery, but you might also be a food manufacturer. We see those scenarios as well that you have the restaurant business model, but they are also food equipment manufacturer. In those cases, the prescriptive ERP systems might not be as great fit. That's when you are going to need slightly more generalized ERP system, and Oracle Cloud ERP is a generalized as well as the large ERP system. The other strength that we have is the overall depth of the ERP layers. They are going to be far more scalable, moldable for different business processes, different business transactions. That's the strength of Oracle Cloud ERP, and that global footprint. In some of the countries, the other solutions might not even be available. That's when you are the only options that you are going to have is probably going to be your Oracle Cloud ERP, not only from the native localization perspective, but also the consulting base who is going to know the local taxation, local localization, as well as the local regulatory processes. For those, Oracle Cloud ERP could be a great fit. The limitations that you're looking at from the Oracle Cloud ERP perspective is the last mile capabilities, especially when you look at the complete suite integrations, pre-baked integrations. Those are going to be through your third-party vendors. So you are increasing the risk overall in increasing so many different vendors. You are going to have many different contracts. So you increase that risk as well. Your implementation is going to be more expensive in general. And then you will require the internal IT expertise to be able to figure out the architecture, just because you are going to have a lot more moving parts as part of your implementation. Having said that, Oracle Cloud ERP is still a very strong fit for machinery manufacturers, especially the large ones. And that's why it ranks at number 8 on our list. Now, number 7 on our list is Acumatica. And if you compare the previous 3 systems, which is going to be your Odoo Rootstock, as well as Oracle Cloud ERP, Acumatica is going to be a system when companies are going to need when they are outgrowing either QuickBooks or Odoo, when they really need to have all of those data sets combined. And this, the machinery manufacturers are going to need when they are at roughly $20-30 million mark. That's when they are going to have far more problems with their inventory costing. They need to change their inventory processes. They need to consolidate their internal supply chain, but they might not be doing the external supply chain collaboration just yet at this stage, because that's not going to be a problem. They might not be collaborating with international vendors. Even if they might collaborate, the overall footprint of that collaboration might not be as high. So that's when your Acumatica is going to be a great fit. Acumatica is a great fit for very fewer countries. If the manufacturer is going to be present in, let's say, US, Canada, maybe UK or Australia, then your Acumatica is a great fit. It might not be as available in countries such as your South America or Eastern Europe. And even if you are going to have some partners who are going to have localization, they might not be as well adopted. So you might run into challenges there. The strength that you're looking at from the Acumatica perspective, the overarching core ERP layers, it will be able to support all of different business models that your machinery manufacturers have. Some of the other solutions that we have on this list might run into issues such as, for example, let's say if you have either rental or subscription processes. If you have those, then even some of the best fit manufacturing systems might not be as great fit because they were designed in 1970s, 1980s, and at that time, these business models didn't exist. So from the machinery manufacturing perspective, your project manufacturing is probably going to be okay, but if you have a very complex projects or programs, the project model might not be as rich as some of the other systems that we have on this. Make to order is going to be a great fit. The service business model is going to be a great fit just because Acumatica has that field service component. The rental component is going to be an okay fit. Now, when you look at some of the other strengths, not only just the manufacturing business model, machinery manufacturing business model, but if you have any other business processes, for example, let's say if you are in food business or any other business, then you should be able to support all of those business models as part of the same database. You are going to have the end-to-end traceability, but only within the country. It's not going to be outside the country. And that's where the real advantage is with Acumatica. The final advantage that we have with Acumatica is that the technology is very cloud native. So you are going to get the mobile experience, especially for your field service scenario, or if your reps are going to be in the field, they are probably going to care for that cloud native experience as well. So those are some of the strengths. Now, the limitations that we have from Acumatica's perspective is not as friendly for global consolidation. So if you are very globally operated and if you have operational synergies between those entities and you are looking for that end-to-end traceability between your entities, Acumatica may not be the best fit. Some of the advanced manufacturing capabilities, for example, machinery manufacturers are going to be really deep into project allocation. They are going to be very deep into Kanban. All of these processes might not be as detailed, as rich as part of Acumatica. So something to keep in mind. The suite capabilities, for example, let's say PLM, etc., that is going to be available through your third party. So you are increasing the vendor risk, even with Acumatica as well. Having said that, Acumatica is a great fit for machinery manufacturers. That's why it is at number 7 on our list. Number 6 on our list is SAP S/4HANA. SAP S/4HANA is a very similar system as your Oracle Cloud ERP. So whatever factors are going to be relevant with Oracle Cloud ERP, it is also relevant with SAP S/4HANA. In general, the way the data model, the process model is designed, SAP S/4HANA is slightly more adopted among machinery manufacturers compared to your Oracle Cloud ERP. The target market for Oracle Cloud ERP is slightly more service-centric. For SAP S/4HANA does really well in the product-centric industries as well. The strengths that we are looking at from the SAP S/4HANA perspective is the HANA database, which is really great at consolidating all of those MRP workloads, especially if you're looking for that centralized planning across the globe. Let's say if you might have 10, 20, 30 different entities, and when you are looking at that consolidated planning, that's when SAP S/4HANA is a really great fit. Some of these smaller systems might struggle with that kind of workload, especially if your products are going to be very complex. You have a lot of attributes. You have things such as your serial number. Generally, the process overhead that is going to be required for your the workloads is going to be far more. And in machinery manufacturing, this problem is going to be really critical, especially if you're looking for consolidating your production scheduling workload. Plus, sometimes some companies also combine their field service workload. So the serial numbers need to go from your production to your field service workflows, and you need the end-to-end planning to be able to manage your schedule. That's a very heavy lift for most systems, and that's where your SAP S/4HANA really shines. The other strengths that we have is overall are very similar to your Oracle Cloud ERP. That is going to be your global compliance, localization, the diversity of the solution to support many different business models. Those are going to be some of these strengths. Now, the limitations that we have from the SAP S/4HANA perspective is the whole suite capabilities that you are looking at, whether you are looking at PLM, etc., or you are looking at configurator that is going to be slightly more geared towards your machinery manufacturers. Then you are looking at third party, and then you will increase your vendor risk. You will require far more IT maturity. The implementations are going to be more expensive. They might be slightly more riskier with SAP S/4HANA. So that's number 6. Now, number 5 on our list is Microsoft Dynamics 365 FNO. Microsoft Dynamics FNO product is very similar to your SAP S/4HANA and Oracle Cloud ERP. And the biggest difference between FNO, at least as of today, is that FNO is going to be slightly richer in their cloud version. It's going to have a lot more capabilities compared to your SAP S/4HANA as well as Oracle Cloud ERP, especially if you look at the core operational capabilities. It's not going to have as detailed layer for your large enterprises, the kind of approval processes that they are going to need, the kind of layers that they are going to have in those companies, especially if you are going to be highly regulated or public traded. In those, the processes are very different. So FNO product does really well in that mid-market, upper mid-market centric companies. It is not as well adopted among Fortune 500 centric workloads. The workload expectations are going to be far higher in general in those workloads. So the other strength that we are looking at from the FNO perspective is very similar to your Oracle Cloud ERP or SAP S/4HANA. It's a generalized product. So you'll be able to support a lot more business models as part of the product. The localization across the globe, where in the locations where other products are not going to be available, you are going to have FNO there from the consulting perspective, but also from the localization perspective. And then FNO has far more depth overall from the WBS perspective. So if you have very large projects, programs that you are trying to manage for those, FNO product is a great fit. The limitations that you're looking at from the FNO perspective is the suite capabilities. Again, it's a very similar problem as your SAP S/4HANA, that your PLM, etc. Those components are going to come from your third party. If you're going to have any sort of supply chain component, they are all going to come from your third party. So again, you are increasing vendor risk. You will require far more IT maturity, and the implementation could be expensive as well. So that's number 5. Now we have Dalmia Works. Number 4 on our list is Dalmia Works. This is the old IQMS product. IQMS does really well for machinery manufacturers that are going to be on SolidWorks. In general, these companies are going to be slightly more into the mechanical space. They are going to be mechanical machines. They might not have as much electrical component, but the large majority of machines these days are going to have some electrical components. So generally, these companies use SolidWorks as well as AutoCAD or some other variant of those CAD PLM systems. But in general, IQMS or Dalmia Works is going to have far tighter alignment with your SolidWorks just because it is owned by the same parent company. So your integration is going to be far superior. The upgrade cycle is going to be far more aligned in general. The other strength from the Dalmia Works perspective, it's a prescriptive product. So you are going to get all of your components that you are going to require as part of your suite. So you don't have to get these from other vendors. Now, this advantage of this approach is that if you buy the complete suite, then it is going to be a really affordable. You might be able to implement it in a much cheaper budget. But if you try to rip and replace, it might be more expensive just because, number one, you are not going to have as much as a tech base. You might not have as many pre-baked, pre-tested integrations, and they might take forever to be able to build, test, configure. So that's going to be a disadvantage. So if you can afford to replace everything in your company as part of your this suite, then this could be a great system. But that also creates a lot of change management issues in the company, that some departments may be willing to replace their favorite tools. Other department might say that, you know what, I use my CAD system and I am not willing to replace that. So then you lose that particular feature from the suite perspective as part of your IQMS. The other strength that we have with your Dalmia Works is it is well adopted among machinery manufacturers. So it's been proven very well. Then the limitation that we have from the IQMS perspective is the technology is very legacy compared to other systems that we have on this list. It might not be as scalable for different business models. It is really good at plastic-centric business models. If you are going to have that plastic component, sometimes machinery manufacturers have that as well. If they are, let's say, building their own mold internally, then they might have that. And then they might have a ecosystem and consulting base is going to be fairly limited as well as with any other restricted products. So that's number 4. Number 3 on our list is Info Cloud Suite Industrial CSI product, and this is just the old Sightline product. This is going to be ideal for machinery manufacturers that are not going to have as formalized engineering process or formalized BOM, but they are going to be very heavy from the engineering manipulation perspective. In general, the majority of the machinery manufacturers, their processes are going to be all over the place. They are going to have change orders all over the process. Even if they might be trying to ship that machine, the customers might ask them to change that. And generally, that causes a lot of friction. And in their case, their BOMs are not going to be as formalized, and they might feel that they are slightly more service-centric company. Their BOMs are never going to be formalized. They are not going to be as regulated. So that's a major challenge in the machinery manufacturing space. Now, with this particular constraint, so let's say if you are going to have BOMs that are going to be highly regulated and they require certain features such as your revision number, then in those cases, your Info CSI is a great fit just because of that fluidness that you have from the BOM perspective, BOM manipulation perspective. Also, for the majority of the machinery manufacturer, just because these are very expensive projects, so the project cost tracking is one of the areas where they always need to have an understanding of where they stand with respect to the costing of the project. If they need to make any sort of stage gate or milestone-centric decisions from the project perspective, they also need to understand the price fluctuations from the vendor perspective. Some of the components might be very expensive. They might have price fluctuations. So in general, their inventory processes are going to be far more detailed. In general, they need to have better sense of cost of their project. So for that, Info CSI is a great fit. The other challenge that we run into from the machinery manufacturing perspective is that they are going to have the embedded field service processes. They are going to be as easy as the primary machinery manufacturing division. So from the machinery manufacturing perspective, you might have, let's say, 70% of your revenue might come from your machine department, 20% might come from your part, 10% might come from your field service. But if your scheduling is sort of integrated, if you are sharing the resources between your production and field service, that's when you are going to run into a lot of issues with these smaller systems. And that's when your CSI is probably a better system in providing that embeddedness. Now, if you are going to have very regulated machines, very tightly controlled machines, for that, you are going to require serial number tracking across your processes from your production to your field service. And that's when, again, your CSI is going to be a great fit. And then you also have the embedded quality processes as part of the solution. If you are going to be in those CapEx equipment in the medical device space, there your quality processes are going to be really relevant. You need to track from your procurement to your production to your return. All of those processes need to be tightly integrated. They need to have the end-to-end traceability. Just because you might have quality processes as part of your production, that might not cut it. So that's going to be a huge strength from the Info CSI perspective. The limitations that you're looking at, the whole WBS-centric discrete processes and the project manufacturing is not as rich as you are going to find with slightly bigger products. So that's going to be a limitation. And if you are going to have very complex inventory where you are tracking a lot of different attributes and you use those attributes for your scheduling planning, that's when your CSI might not be the best fit. And the technology is slightly more a legacy, even though they are selling it as Cloud Suite, but the technology is still very legacy. So sometimes users report a steep learning curve with the solution. But again, Info CSI is a great product, and that's why it is at number 3 on our list. Number 2 on our list is Appicore Kinetic. And Appicore Kinetic is a great product when you are going to be in very formalized engineering processes where you are trying to govern the change control, the engineering processes where you have to mandate your revision number. And if you're building equipments for your OEMs, generally the BOMs and revision numbers are probably going to be mandated by them. This we generally see in, let's say, if you are in aerospace. Aerospace, this is going to be a very flow-down approach where you are going to get pretty much everything from your OEMs, etc. So in those cases, you are going to require the formal engineering processes. You also have industries such as your metal, etc. If you're utilizing metal component, as part of your machines, and you need to track all of those attributes as part of your scheduling, planning, etc., that's when your Epicor Kinetic is a great fit because it can accommodate all of those as part of your scheduling as well as planning. The other strengths that we have from the Epicor Kinetic perspective is if you're going to have slightly more MES-centric architecture. In MES-centric architecture, you are going to have your quality, the whole production, etc., residing inside your MES layer as opposed to in the ERP layer. In some industries, that might be slightly more relevant. And the reason for that is because for them, the production matters a lot more than end-to-end traceability that you are going to require from the procurement perspective, from your engineering perspective. They might not care for that as much. They care for the production processes a lot more. So in those cases, Epicor Kinetic is going to be a great fit. Now, the limitations that you're going to run into with Epicor Kinetic is, let's say, if you have very fluid bonds, and for machinery manufacturers, that is generally the case, so that mandating of revision number may not be as friendly for those companies. If their bombs are going to be all over the place, they are making changes all over the place, it might not be as a friendly process in general. The other challenges that we have with Epicor Kinetic is the field service and the quality processes are not as embedded as part of their process model, as part of their data model. They have acquired a company for field service, and they are trying to embed, integrate. But generally, when you acquire these companies, the experience is not going to be as intuitive in general. And it's not as proven. The add-on is not going to be as proven as the consolidated, component, and you are not going to get the same experience that you might get with products such as your Infor CSI. And then the accounting and finance layers, they are not as detailed as you are going to find with some of the other products on this list. So that's number 2. Now, number 1 on our list is Infor Cloud Suite LN. And Infor Cloud Suite LN overcomes a lot of shortcomings that you have with slightly smaller products such as your Infor CSI or Epicor Kinetic. So this is going to be relevant for slightly global manufacturing companies when you care for that global supply chain collaboration, global operational collaboration. That's when your Infor Cloud Suite LN is going to be a great fit. It is localized and globalized in a lot of different countries, at least 20 to 30 different countries. So if you're present in those countries, you are probably going to be able to collaborate internationally, and you'll be able to plan that as part of one model. And Infor Cloud Suite LN is proven for very heavy workloads, up to 20,000 people companies. So obviously, it's a very strong product in general for those companies. So the other strength that you're looking at from the Cloud Suite LN perspective is that you are going to get all of those components pre-integrated, pre-baked, pre-tested with your suite, so you don't have to rely on third-party vendors, and that generally reduces the implementation time just because you don't have to deal with so many different contracts, vendors. You don't have to figure out the architecture, so your implementation risk is going to be lower. It's probably going to be cheaper in general, but then you have some of the limitations that you are pigeonholing yourself in very specific business models. So tomorrow, let's say if your business model changes, you might outgrow this. But let's say if you are confident that your business model is fairly stable, you are not as involved from the M&A perspective, then you might be okay on Infor Cloud Suite LN. Some of the other limitations that we have from the Infor Cloud Suite LN perspective is it's not suitable for SMBs that are going to be below $250 million in revenue, and the ecosystem and consulting base is going to be fairly limited as well, as with any prescriptive products. So that's number 1. If you enjoyed this video, we are going to include the link that is going to have much deeper analysis. So you might want to check that. We publish these videos on a weekly basis. So like and subscribe on YouTube. This podcast is also available on Spotify as well as Apple. So you might want to check there and subscribe if you like. And then if you have not checked our digital transformation report for 2024, we are going to include the link of that as well. On that note, thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one.